annually, there's about $21 billion a year of diesel catalytic converters being unused. I'm talking about the precious metals of platinum and palladium. That's a lot of money going down into a landfill or stockpile or whatever.
Welcome back to the Clean Techies podcast, where we interview climate tech founders and VCs to discuss all things building and investing to solve the biggest challenge of our generation, climate change. If you dream of a future where you can throw something in the bin and it will eventually be fully recycled into the same or a new product, this is an episode for you. Today, we share our conversation with the CEO of publicly traded Regenx, Greg Pendura. Regenx is a metals recycling company recovering precious metals from diesel catalytic converters and selling it on the market or providing this service directly to OEMs. In this conversation, Greg explains the problem they are solving, how they're solving it, the backstory of the company, which is actually quite fascinating, how they funded the project, how they come up with the R&D process and went through that entire phase, and where he sees the future going. Overall, a pretty fascinating episode about a new technology in the materials engineering space. Enjoy this episode. All right, welcome to the show, Greg.
Hi, Silas. Great to be on.
Yeah, super excited to have you on. I think this is like one of those technologies that's kind of like out of left field if you don't know about it. So I'm really excited to learn about this. So let's just kind of start with the beginning. You know, who are you and what are you doing now? And maybe give us a tad bit of your backstory.
Well, I'm the CEO of a company called Regenx Technologies. We're a publicly traded company in Canada. We're also listed on the United States market as well. But our whole purpose here is a clean tech recovery of precious metals, primarily platinum and palladium right now. And we've been working on this for a good many years, 3.5, 4 years, and we're starting to take it commercial.
Awesome. And how did you get into this space? Like what did you do before this?
Well, we started our roots, if you like, as a junior miner, and we were in the mining business in Spain for as a junior miner, trying to do some exploration. And uh, junior miners, it's a tough business. I mean, it's especially back then, so 7, 8 years ago. And so what we decided to do is sell one of our assets in Spain. It was a tin tantalum property. We did do that. And what we wanted to do is to, rather than continue the exploration project, is to see how we could possibly develop uh, equipment, technologies, systems which could make mining a little more eco-friendly. So that was our goal. This is probably about 6 years ago or so, and uh, with the funding we got from the sale, we started looking at purchasing potential ideas and develop them ourselves internally to basically get to where we are. As I said, we first started off trying to see what we could do on the mining side to make use less water and have a closed loop system where you're continuing to use the same water and and to try to evolve that into a eco-friendly mining operation, small scale. And from there, because of different circumstances, we got ourselves evolved into e-waste, which branched off into where we are right now with catalytic converters. And it's been a interesting journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can imagine. I guess I'm really curious always when I ask people to come on the show is how did you get interested in climate? You know, was this something you were always interested in from a young age? Like, was it something that came up along the way? How what's the backstory there?
Well, I've always had an interest in climate to some degree, and being involved in the mining business for a long time as an explorer, it really brought to the forefront the problem that we got here. I mean, we've got an issue here on the eco side with not just mining but a lot of industries. So that sort of triggered in our minds. Okay, there's all these regulatory issues with mining on the environmental side, and on the toxic side for the environment. So that started our journey to try to find and develop systems which we could reduce that impact on the environment.
Hey there. Quick break to remind any founders or VCs listening, if you are looking for deal flow, seeking to raise funding, looking for partners to help service your needs, or perhaps you're looking for corporate investment partners, feel free to reach out to us through our Slack channel, which can be found in the description. Because we meet a lot of people in this space, we set aside time each week to make introductions to the various people that we encounter. This is something we do free of charge in order to help these incredible companies solving climate change to scale. Looking forward to hearing from you in the Slack channel. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's quite interesting because the space of mining is something that I guess some people are talking about it now because of lithium mining and various things, but it's something a lot of people, you've got people who are doing this work in mining for a long time because it's a critical thing for all infrastructure essentially, right? And it's just really exciting time for us to find out ways that we can clean it up essentially, right? So let's talk a little bit about the problem you're solving. So you kind of mentioned it and alluded to it, but could you talk more about the precise problem of minerals and identifying them? And just let's talk about the problem first.
Yeah, well, I guess there's a couple of ways to answer that question, Silas. What on the mining side, we've got a sustainability issue when it comes to mining. I mean, it's not a finite resource, and it's getting more and more difficult to find proper resources, and the added cost of from the mining to the processing to it's a tough business, and especially now with the environmental controls on it, it makes it more expensive. So what 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 we're focusing on is we wanted to develop technology, a clean tech technology, which could do two things. One would be take some of the pressure off mining, and number two is to go after recovering some of these precious metals as opposed to having them go into landfills or being stockpiled. And um, through our business relationships, when we started this journey, uh, we discovered that the low hanging fruit in this whole area, you can believe it, is diesel catalytic converters. And most people have no idea of the size of that market or anything. But and there's a reason why we chose diesel, and the reason why we chose to try to go after recovering the platinum and palladium from that market is because the only commercially viable method of doing that up until now has been smelters. And if you're familiar with mining, you know what smelters are. They got big furnaces. They're getting a pretty bad rap in the environment because of the toxicity in the environment, and so what we were looking at there is that, okay, what is there a way that we could do what they do in an environmentally friendly way? So that led us down the path of chemistry. And once we figured that out, now we have to go down the path of how can we use that chemistry, put it into a process, a system process, where we could extract the precious metals from the catalytic converters.
Great. That's really helpful. I appreciate that. Could you explain for people who are unfamiliar, what is a catalytic converter?
Catalytic converter, every vehicle has one, except electric vehicles. And you can think of it as basically like a muffler. It looks like a muffler, and it's designed to reduce toxic emissions from gasoline or diesel as you burn your vehicles. And so the end of life of the vehicle, you've got catalytic converter left over, if you like, and it's expensive. I mean, precious metals are platinum and palladium is expensive. So it's more expensive than well, almost as expensive as gold. It's a commodity price, so it goes back and forth. But yeah, so we wanted to see if we could be successful in that business of recovering those precious metals from these converters, and we we've been very successful and been able to accomplish that.
Yeah. So what's happening with these now? Like when a car is kind of at the end of its life, what's happening? Are they just kind of sitting in a junkyard somewhere? What's going to end up happening to these? Because there's valuable material there.
Yeah, there is. I mean, there's up until a short time ago, smelters were, as I said, processing gasoline and diesel catalytic converters, and they're still doing gasoline catalytic converters. But with the newer advent of the diesel catalytic converters over the last 5 years or so, more and more silicon carbide was being involved in the manufacture of those diesel catalytic converters. This created processing issues with smelters. The silicon carbide sort of created arcing hot spots in their furnaces, which creates little explosions and stuff. So it's not great for their system. Plus, it sort of muddies up their or puts sludge in their system, which makes the recovery of other metals less efficient for them. So they have, in the last few years, been basically saying, look, we want to back away from this. Most aren't touching it any longer. So they're going into landfills or they're being stockpiled or whatever. So it's a huge problem. I mean, annually, there's about $21 billion a year of diesel catalytic converters being unused. I'm talking about the precious metals of platinum and palladium. That's a lot of money going down into a landfill or stockpile or whatever. And so that was the rationale behind our trying to enter into that marketplace.
Hey there. Are you building a climate tech business and looking for very specialized talent? Consider reaching out to our sponsors, NextWave Partners. NextWave are experts in talent acquisition, recruitment, and retention across the climate tech, renewables, and ESG spaces globally. So if your team is growing or you're looking to make a career change yourself, feel free to reach out to NextWave at next-wavepartners.com or reach out to one of their consultants directly via their LinkedIn page. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually quite fascinating. I just find it interesting to think about it. Maybe it would have come about without the climate tech revolution, but especially with people focusing on innovating in kind of conventional industries and finding ways to take waste, and then between the way the arbitrage between the waste and the efficient way, making money right in that kind of arbitrage there. I think it's fascinating that some of these problems, like there's so many things that you can solve, right? You can just take and reduce waste and take and sell those other things for different things to make money out of it. So I'd be kind of curious. There's one thing in particular that your website mentions, which is that the market for these catalytic converters is growing. And I'm just kind of curious as to why that is, because I think it's counterintuitive to the average person, maybe thinking, well, don't we have more electric vehicles being built or whatnot? So I'm kind of curious to ask a little bit more about that. Why is it a growing market?
Sure. And that's a good point. Everybody thinks with the advent of EVs that it'll be a diminishing market, but it's not. Just to give you an idea, in 2017-18, the market was around 25 billion. 2025, it's estimated it to be about 40 billion. So that's a 50% increase in a very short period of time. And the major reason for that is the a lot of the trucks, heavy transportation vehicles, uh, electric vehicles can't go there. There's a huge industrial market with off-road vehicles, with generators and industrial generators. So it's a market that is going to continue for a long time. Can the electrical world take it over in the future? It's a possibility, but it's a long way off. And we could be as successful as we'd hope to be, and we'd hardly scratch the surface of what this
Mm-hmm.
problem is. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I know it's fascinating. I think there's a huge debate around if heavy trucking can actually be EV. A lot of people believe it's going to be hydrogen, but I mean, by all my accounts, it's still very far from being really mainstream. So we'll see. So now let's kind of shift into the solution a bit. So, um, how are you solving these problems? If you're not smelting it down, what are you doing? How does the chemistry work? Kind of explain it like you're explaining it to to an 8-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, the, as of now, there is no other commercially viable alternative to smelter. So we'll be the first business technology out there which is able to do that. So rather than burning the material like smelters do, we've gone down the chemistry route, and uh, we've got basically we'll call it non-toxic chemicals, which are used to create the reaction we need to what happens with the catalytic converter. It gets there's a heart or a honeycomb in the middle of this muffler shaped material that's taken out and it's ground into a fine powder, and that powder contains the platinum, the palladium, and so we have the chemistry that will separate the platinum and palladium from the powder and suspend it in solution. And then we have a proprietary processing method in our factory, which will then bring the precious metals out of solution, put it back into solid form, and that's the material which we can further refine, or we can send it to a refiner to increase it from 90% concentration to the 99.99% grade, which you need to sell it as a pure platinum palladium.
Okay, got it. So you take them, you take the catalytic converters, you take a part out of it, you grind it, it goes into some chemical solutions, and then it comes out, you refine it from there to then sell it to different, different off takers. Did I get that correct?
Yeah, yeah, you're there. There's different. On the offtake side, it's really interesting. We've all obviously been contacted by platinum and palladium traders because we have what they want, and the business relationship there typically is they offer like an offtake or funding to you to work your operating side, and then in exchange for those funds, they'll take platinum and palladium at a future date to repay it. So that's one avenue. But the other interesting thing here is and we've been contacted by two of the larger automotive companies in the southeastern U.S. and they've got an issue there because what are they going to do with their diesel catalytic converters? I mean, they got customers, they've got larger customers, and so they are looking like the word circular economy these days is a big buzzword, and the automotive industry and other large companies, they want to be good corporate citizens as well. They've got shareholders they have to appease, and they are looking for companies such as ours where they can be part of the use of recycled materials to get new materials to make or manufacture the new products again. So a closed loop circular economy. And this is going to get major legs as we go on in the future. And they're striving to find that, and we will be a perfect partner for them.
Interesting. Yeah. So I wanted to get into this. That is something kind of fascinating. I am curious on when you're not just doing it as a service, for these manufacturers that want to take back the converters and remanufacture the metals. Is recycled metal, palladium and platinum, is it more valuable than non-recycled because of the green value on it?
Well, there are other components there, like from a company such as ours, you're obviously getting carbon credit components because of what you're doing. So carbon credits are really will be a secondary revenue stream for us. But really, it's the metal itself. You get what you get. It's a spot price on it, just like if you recovered gold or silver, if gold is $2,000 an ounce, that's the price the market will pay at that particular time. So, and it's the same thing with platinum and palladium. So
Mhm.
it's you get what the market bears.
Okay, I was curious. So you're, in other words, you are taking the value as a company as Regenx of the carbon credits. You're not passing it through the valuation of the metal being recycled, not passing it through to the clients who purchase it, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That we have different options on how we use our carbon credits, just like
Yeah.
anybody else. But we're just going down that path now. We our first commercial plant has just been into the commissioning phase, and so we'll be going through the audit process so that we will be fortunate enough to get involved in the carbon credit world. So. That will be probably in the early fall of this year for us. We'll have enough data from auditing our plants to be able to go down that path.
Mm. Hey there, thanks for listening to this episode. If you made it this far, it's likely that you're enjoying the show, so I wanted to ask your help. If you're enjoying it, please give us a review on Apple Podcasts and share with somebody in the same industry who might find this interesting. And if you're interested in getting summaries of these episodes, go subscribe to our newsletter that comes out on LinkedIn and Substack. Links can be found in the description. Thanks for your help in growing the reach of this show. Yeah, so before I do want to get into the business aspect a little bit more in a second. I want to ask one other question about the actual process. When you kind of grind it down and then refine it to different things, what is the waste? Is there any waste material? What kind of level are you able to recover these precious metals?
Yeah, that's a good point. Like our plant has been designed to do a 4 module facility plant. I won't get involved in that, but that that 4 module plant will be doing or processing about 10 tons a day of catalytic converter material. So we know that the precious metals is a small fraction of that amount. So
Mm,
if 10 tons of material get put through the plant, we'll get a couple of kilograms of precious metals. The rest is, as you call it, waste, or in the mining world, you'd consider it as tailings. Uh, Rather than putting these tailings, and the tailings are non-toxic, by the way, once it goes through our process, it's inert. Uh, but rather than putting 10 tons a day into a landfill, we have industrial uses for that material, which will be used in lieu of making some other materials, and there'll be other industrial uses for it. So basically, we'll have basically a zero environmental footprint in our plant. There will be nothing going basically in the air. What little goes in the wastewater is inert, and the tailings material will be reused. So it's pretty neat.
what are some of the reuse capacities or capabilities for that kind of I forget what you call it specifically, that waste material? What is it using? It concrete or something like that?
Yeah, I mean there are applications for it in the concrete industry as a strengthener. There are applications for it in the building industry as well, and there are other. Uh, the major one which we're doing I can't allude to because it's we got NDA on that. So, but there are multiple uses for that material.
Interesting. Yeah, I really find it fascinating when people put their mind to it, where they can find different ways to utilize, especially with chemistry, all these other materials and other things. I'm keen to see when that comes out, what that actually is. I appreciate that though. Okay, very cool. So on the business side, I think it makes more sense to go what we talked about before, which was a little bit about the business model. So some will be refined and sold on the market, kind of whatever the spot price is. But you also talked about working with manufacturers to basically provide a service to retake, take their old catalytic converters from their own machines and then bring it back and utilize that in the next step. Could you talk about the business model as a whole? Which components are you having? You mentioned carbon credits as well. Where are the main revenue streams coming from for Regenx?
Our major revenue stream is going to be, the recapture of platinum and palladium, and to either resell that into the market at a spot price, or to get a relationship with a automotive company like I'm talking about, where we can give them back the actual physical material, and they can use the platinum and palladium in their manufacture of new catalytic converter components. So we I kind of think that we're going to be working more with relationships with third parties than with just, as opposed to just selling it outright in the marketplace. But from a dollar value perspective, they're all very, very similar. We're not going to get better value by working with an automotive company than we will be selling at spot. Dollar for dollar, it'll be similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to think about it from the manufacturer perspective, right? If they can, it's a bit of a marketing thing, right? Too, if they can also say, "Hey, we're this is an initiative we're doing that we're becoming fully circular, right? With getting our things
Yeah.
back into the plant." Are there other companies doing similar things with different materials that you can kind of pair with? Is this a common thing for manufacturers of specifically keeping the automotive space to have other materials or other machines that can take back the old metals and reuse them somehow? Is this a pretty common thing, or is this totally new?
Well, metal recycling has been going on for a long time. You get our joint venture partner in Tennessee is a large recycler in the area, and they've been involved in the business for 20 some years, and I call them the supply chain experts, and they are, and they've been selling every scrap piece of metal from a car, and utilizing it that way. And they've been also involved in, obviously, in the catalytic converter side as well. They're out where they sent it before was to smelters, as I was saying. But now, there's this huge supply of diesel catalytic converters with no home, and so it's interesting. Actually, we got into this business because of our partner. He knew one of our board members, and uh, he came up to Vancouver to see what we were doing, and said, "Look, if you guys can do what you're saying you're trying to do in the e-waste world, uh, the, you got to look at diesel catalytic converters, because the roof is going to fall in when the smelters say no more." And he was right on 100%. And what's going to be really interesting is that we are not going to be competitors to smelters at all. They're maxed out. But what's interesting here is that smelters, they've got a lot of large customers who have got diesel catalytic converters as well, and they don't want to process them. They want to keep the customers happy. What are they going to do? So if they could have a relationship with a company such as ours, it's a win-win for smelters, win-wins for us, for their customers. So uh, we'll be working with smelters as we move forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. This is something I might have already asked this question on a former episode with something similar, but is it required that the people disposing, this material, who's paying for it to get disposed of? Because it's not free to smelt or to do in your process. Are they paying you to take this off their hands?
No, no, I wish they were. No, you pay for it because of the precious metal content,
Yeah.
and there's a price. If it has $500, for example, worth of precious metals in that used catalytic converter, uh, you pay a fraction of that price, but you pay a price to get that
Yeah.
material, and and then you're involved, of course, on the processing side of yourself, which costs money, and so
Yeah.
yeah, it's you pay for it, but at the end of the game, obviously you have to make a profit or you won't be in business.
Yeah, certainly. So what's the supply chain like? You talked about this a little bit with your partner, but I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's probably a very well built out supply chain of, okay, there's waste metal, somebody else is already taking it and smelting it, and then there's people going and finding where that is, right? There's probably people who have offtake agreements where they're like they'll get access to it, and maybe sometimes they're going to junkyards, who knows, right?
Yeah.
But is that fully built out, that kind of infrastructure and that supply chain, and you can just tap in alongside and take the stuff that they don't want to do?
Yeah, no, it's a fairly it's a mature business.
Okay.
It's a it's a it's a networking type of business. It's you've got the smaller guys, and so you can go from the junkyards, like you said, to automotive shops, for example. Uh, they are looking for smaller middlemen to take the converters out of their hands. These middlemen are then look for aggregators or people who compile larger amounts. And companies like our partners, Davis Recycling out of Tennessee, they have relationships with the larger aggregators. They have relationships with the middlemen, all the way down to the smaller people. And they've got their distribution trucks lined up. They primarily work through about 13 states around Tennessee. And so they have their own supply chain or their own network in place
Mm-hmm.
to get them catalytic converters, take them to their factory in Tennessee where they cut out the honeycomb and they chop it into the fine powder. In the past, they would send that to smelters. Now the powder will be coming to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find this really fascinating. This is kind of a sidebar, but I spend a lot of time talking to people in more of the tech space, and I find it interesting because I grew up working in my dad's cabinet shop, and it's in the middle of nowhere in Wisconsin. It is in some ways similar, where there's a lot of these physical hardware and physical products and businesses that build these products around the country, and everything is done very relationship based. And I really find it fascinating where you've got these people coming in and totally trying to like change and innovate in the space, and probably I'm assuming in some cases they maybe stomp around and step on some toes rather than getting to know people and build those relationships. I Maybe you have any stories about that, or any comments on that?
Yeah, I mean you're absolutely right. It's a relationship business. If we let's assume we have the best technology in the world to get the precious metals out of these diesel catalytic converters. And I think we do have a world-class technology. But on top of that, if we had to go out and find the supply chain ourselves and to understand that business, it'd be very scary for us. So our relationship with our partner basically eliminates the major risk in this business. And so we're really obviously happy to have that relationship with him because all that we have to do is to do what we know what to do, and that is to do our technology in the factory to recapture these precious metals. But it's not an easy business acquiring all this scrap because it's a trust business. People got to know each other. It's difficult for new people to get involved in that business. It's an interesting business. It's not an easy business.
Yeah, I like these things. I mean, everybody wants to build a software product, but the truth is, from a business perspective, physical products and these things, they have a bit of a moat, right? It's not easy to break in because you have to cross a moat full of alligators and piranhas, right? Um,
Totally. Totally.
One thing I want to ask about is you mentioned at the beginning that they were involved in mining, they sold a project to fund it, and then they kind of found a technology. How did that work? So I want to know about the process of identifying, okay, we want to go find a technology that can help us with this one problem in particular. Did you just go to the universities? Was it already fully developed? Did you have to do a lot of R&D? Walk us through that process. What did that look like?
Yeah, when we first were starting to look at getting involved in the equipment side of green mining, we purchased a private company, and that started us going down the path of we're really good on the fabrication side process, and we've developed that over the last 6, 7 years. And we knew what we could do equipment wise, process wise. And we knew that we needed a chemistry to fit into that. And we had some background in that as well. But we've worked with some universities across the world, two in different countries. We've but basically with that, they've been somewhat consultants, but we've developed everything in-house. We've got an excellent team on the chemistry side. Uh, we've got an excellent team on the process side, and we've been fortunate to have good people, and with that, grow new people from the intellectual base that we have. So R&D path is not easy. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are listening. It's not an easy path, and and it's a more difficult path to go from R&D to a lab benchtop to commercial. I mean, every step is a huge, gargantuan step, and but we've been fortunate. It's taken us only less than 4 years, and we've gone from concept to commercial, which is very, very quick in this business.
Yeah, that is really fast. I mean, I'm gonna write that down. 4 years, that's crazy. I mean, a lot of people talk to me. Usually, it takes something like there's already some technology development prior, and then it still takes them anywhere 4 to 7, 8 years to do it.
Yeah.
So, could you talk about you mentioned that you developed it in house. Did you have just kind of experts in house that said, "Hey, we know this one particular problem. We know some basics about chemistry in this and that area," and then you just went out and sought kind of experts who could help kind of bridge the gap there? How do you go about deciding where to poke around? Because it is R&D, so you got to do a little bit of experiments.
Yeah, we're kind of fortunate that we have some relationship in the university world, and we initially we really use those the best way we could. And again, it's a lot of times it could be hit and miss, and we did go through that. But once you hit a few, then if you got the right people on staff to grow that concept internally, it's fun, and they love doing that because it's creating something from nothing, and I'll call them lab rats who love to do that because that's what they're there for. And so yeah, so we did get some. I mean, in this world, I mean, chemistry is chemistry. It's been you can't change it that much. Uh, but the whole trick there is it's a black art. And how do you how do you twinkle the recipes and the oxidants and the lixiviants? It's a fine art. That's why a lot of things aren't patented out there in the chemistry world. It's better to be IP protected, keep it close to the chest, and it's safer that way. And that's what we've done. We've got two patents basically, which we're not going to patent. One on the chemistry side and one on the process side, and both will keep in house.
Interesting. Yeah. No, I appreciate this. This is fascinating. One thing I want to ask about is with the funding. So you mentioned that you had sold the project and that was able to help you with a little bit of time. Was that what funded the venture throughout the entire R&D process? Did you have any government grants? How did that funding process look? I'm sure there's many other people building hardware related and going through that R&D process, and they'd probably be keen to know how did you make it survive during that time?
Yeah, because we were a public company originally, uh, most of our funding came through, we call it private placements in the U.S. You call it pipes. or related financings like that. So that's how we moved along. Um, and we got the funds from the sale of the property, but we needed much more than that. The extra funding came about through basically company related financings and through business associates, friends, family, that sort of thing. We didn't go down the funding route through government agencies simply because it's time consuming. It's well, anyway, it just didn't fit our bill. What we'll be looking at now is that there is funding opportunities for us on the green fund side to grow and expand further. But that only has come about because we've proven the concept. Um, it's not that easy to get pre-concept funding to achieve something in the funding world. So anyway, to answer your question, most of our funding has come about through private placements in our public company, and we've grown that way.
Mm-hmm. So with those early, in the early days when you don't have the technology proven and you're finding people who are willing to invest, what usually was at least the bare minimum metric? I'm assuming these people probably, are believers in what you're doing and there's some kind of vision you sell them. Is there a particular metric or tick box that you can say, hey, we've at least got this that gives you some kind of traction to get that money? Because I'm assuming, unless you're going to friends and family who just believe in your vision, you need to have something for them, right?
Yeah, you do for sure. And I mean, we were when we decided to move out of the mining business, the exploration business, we sold our vision on the basis that we wanted to make mining more eco-friendly. Like that was how we started going down that path. And by going down that path, we evolved from mining to larger enterprises on electronic e-waste and catalytic converters. So it was really, we didn't start down that path. We sort of went down that rabbit hole from our development as we were moving forward. And each time we hit a new rabbit hole, it was a positive, and we were just able to explain that, hey, this is our vision, this is what we could accomplish if everything goes right. And uh, as I said, we were very fortunate in such a short period of time to accomplish what we have.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. I mean, to me, the idea of getting through that valley of death, as a lot of people call it, of the difficulty before there's really product market fit and the technology is proven, it can be difficult. But now that it's proven, so you have the technology proven. If I understand correctly, you've already done a pilot project.
Yeah, we've what we've done is, as I said, we did all our lab work in Vancouver, Canada. We built a pilot plant in Vancouver as well. Uh, Obviously, the testing there went well, and we decided to, at that point in time, move that pilot plant down to our partner in near Johnson City, Tennessee, and to continue a scaled up work on that pilot plant. It was coming along fine. We were starting to put together the final pieces of what a commercial plant should look like, the design of that. And so from scaling up the pilot plant, we were able to do that. And we were able to design a 4 module plant to be our optimum facility. And we've just completed construction of module 1. And just a couple of weeks ago, we started the commissioning process on that, which will take about 90 days. And 90 days from that point in time, that will be a fully commercial module. And each module will produce about 2.5 tons. So it will have a throughput of about 2.5 tons per day of material. And yeah, I mean, once we check the box off on module one, come end of June or so, uh, at that point in time, we start the procurement process for modules two, three, and four to have a full four module facility in Tennessee.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I love hearing about how these things are built. I'm also a big fan of Tennessee. Maybe next time I'm there, I'll have to check it out. Um, um, so once you've gotten to this point where you've proven technology, you've got it kind of building, it's really like it's kind of the pin is put in it. You know how to make money. It's not a risk, right? At that point, then it does the investor money just flood in because it's kind of like an infrastructure play then, or is in this space in particular in kind of the mining world and the precious metals world, is it still considered somewhat risky because it's based off of commodity prices? Like what does it look like once you've got that proven and that shift to now getting big dollars to continue building more of these plants?
Yeah, I mean, there's always a risk in any business, of course, but I mean, being a public company, our shareholders uh, are looking for the upside. I mean, that's like anybody else. If you invest money, you want to make money. And the when you're a small startup, even a pre-startup company, investors are looking for opportunities when they can have multiple returns on their investment. And uh, unfortunately, most of those ventures don't turn out very well. And the ones that do, many times have a very high multiple. I mean, we're talking, I won't even go there, but I mean, it's they are home runs, as we call
Mhm.
it. And so as we go closer and closer down this path towards checking off module one, uh, there's going to be a trigger point there where more investors are going to get interested in the project because they know that come end of June when we check off module one, there's no other question marks. It's you're going full board production. You're adding to your plant. The only thing you got to be aware of from a business is, can you manage your growth properly? We have an opportunity to grow very quickly, not just nationally but internationally. We've got people talking to us about international prospects. I mean, we'll do one step at a time, but we'll focus on the US, we'll go to Canada, we'll look at international marketplaces, but we got to be careful we don't be too big for our britches. I mean, we're talking huge dollars here. Like one of our plants, if the revenues meet what we anticipate, each plant will generate about 100 million US dollars per year. So it's significant, and the expansion of it is basically cookie cutter. I mean, each module is the same, so there's no rethinking, no redesigning. It's just putting out new plants.
Mhm. Yeah, it's good. So it's scalable. So it's good. And it's a good
Very.
solution, right? Interesting. Okay, well, I think, those are the main topics I wanted to go over. I would be keen just to kind of hear from you. We've talked about quite a lot of things. I guess I'd be keen to hear what is your, looking outside of just Regenx, what is your vision of what the future could look like in a couple, let's just say 2, 3 years with technology like this and other companies doing similar things in other verticals? What are you excited for? What do you think that we're going to see as a really common thing within the next 2, 3 years?
Well, I mean, it's a necessity. It has to be. The whole concept of recycling has to become paramount because, I mean, the world as we know it is changing. I mean, we got geopolitical problems, we got environmental problems. There's huge issues out there, and the only way that the growth that we're seeing in the world today can be sustained is through environmentally friendly, sustainable growth, and that's through recycling. So anytime a company is involved in recycling end of life materials and recapturing uh, the benefit of those for the manufacture of new materials and can do that in a clean tech manner, I mean, that's where the world's heading. That's where it's going to be exciting. I mean, that's going to create, I think, a significant positive impact on our environment. And hey, we're all looking forward to that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's the issue of climate change that this is the main reason of this podcast. But to me, like if you even just set that aside, it's just to me super fascinating to think about a world where most things that we use can be recycled and made again. Like it seems like sci-fi, right? I think people when many years ago might have dreamed of flying cars or space travel or whatnot. I dream of when everything can be just like thrown into a bin and it turns up
Yeah,
again, in some other format.
yeah, no, for sure. I mean, if everything will, if everything that could be recycled was recycled, our you know major concern on climate change would diminish a lot. I mean, that just there's no question about that.
All right, Greg. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show today. Any final asks for the audience or where people can reach you?
Well, I mean, people can reach me at Regenx. Just contact our website, Regenx .tech, and my information's on there. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that people may have in regards to what we're doing business-wise, sustainability-wise, climate-wise, and and explain that a little further. And I'm just it's the word is going to come out very quickly on what we're offering the marketplace through channels such as yours, and I think we're going to be a household name relatively soon because of the technology that we have.
Yeah, it's certainly fascinating enough to be a household name, right? And I think it's something that we should see a lot more interest in the space. I think when people start to find out about this, and maybe I'm just too much of a nerd that it interests me, but I think that most people will be really excited by seeing these things, right? So it's been a pleasure to have you on. I'm really excited to see what you guys do, and yeah, we'll have to see. Maybe have to have you on in a couple of years and see where things are.
You bet, Silas. It was good talking to you.
Yep. Cheers.
All right, bye bye.